car keeps showing up at 2 a.m. I think I know what it wants. It was a typical Tuesday night. I had just finished a long day at work and was looking forward to getting some rest. I crawled into bed and quickly fell asleep, only to be jolted awake a few hours later. I glanced at the clock and groaned. It was only 2 a.m. I tried to go back to sleep, but something was nagging at the back of my mind. I got out of bed and walked over to the window, peering out into the darkness, and that's when I saw it. A car parked in my driveway. It was a beat-up old sedan with rusted-out doors and a cracked windshield. It looked like it had been abandoned for years, but what was it doing in my driveway at 2 a.m.? I rubbed my eyes and blinked a few times, thinking maybe I was seeing things, but the car was still there and it seemed to be taunting me. It was like it knew I was watching it. I felt a chill run down my spine and I quickly closed the curtains, trying to shake off the feeling. I paced around my bedroom for a few minutes, trying to decide what to do. Should I call the police? Should I go outside and investigate? Should I just ignore it and go back to bed? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this car. As I debated my options, I noticed something strange. The clock read 3 a.m., but the car was gone. It had vanished into thin air. I felt a wave of unease wash over me. How could a car just disappear like that? I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, and the next morning I woke up feeling exhausted and on edge. I couldn't stop thinking about the car. I tried to convince myself that it was just a coincidence, that someone had parked there and then driven away in the middle of the night. But I knew deep down that something wasn't right. Over the next few nights, the car appeared at 2 a.m. and disappeared at 3 a.m. like clockwork. I started to dread going to bed, knowing that I would inevitably be woken up by the sound of an engine rumbling outside my window. I tried to talk to my neighbors about it, but they all acted like I was crazy. They had never seen the car, and they didn't seem to believe me when I told them about it. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. And one night, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I waited until the car appeared in my driveway. Then I grabbed my flashlight and went outside. As I approached the car, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I could hear the sound of the engine running, even though the car was empty. I shined my flashlight inside and saw that the steering wheel was turning on its own, as if someone, or something, was driving the car. I backed away slowly, my heart racing. As I turned to go back inside, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Standing at the end of my driveway was a figure in a black hooded cloak, watching me. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its eyes on me. I turned and ran back into my house, locking the door behind me. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I decided that I needed to get to the bottom of this. I did some research and discovered that my house was built on the site of an old graveyard, which had been relocated in the 1930s. I started to wonder if the car and the hooded figure were somehow connected to the graveyard. That same night, I decided to stake out the graveyard. I parked my car across the street and waited. At 2 a.m., the beat-up sedan appeared in my driveway. I watched it closely, trying to see if anyone was driving it. But as I watched, the car started to shake and rattle, as if it was being pulled by an invisible force. Then, it started to rise off the ground, hovering in midair. I couldn't believe what was happening. The car was defying the laws of physics. And then something even more bizarre happened. The hooded figure appeared out of nowhere, standing next to the hovering car. It reached out and touched the car, and then both the car and the figure disappeared into thin air. I sat there in shock, not sure what to make of what I had just witnessed. But then I heard a voice in my head. It was the voice of the hooded figure speaking directly to me. "You have been chosen," the voice said. "You are the one who will help us." I didn't know what to make of it. Was I going crazy, or was this really happening? I sat there for a few more minutes, trying to process everything, and then I made a decision. I got out of my car and walked over to where the car and the figure had disappeared. There was nothing there but empty air, but I knew what I had to do. I closed my eyes and concentrated, trying to reach out to the hooded figure. "I'm ready," I said. "I'll help you." Suddenly, I felt a rush of energy flow through me. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before. I felt empowered, like I had a purpose in life. And then, I heard a sound that made my heart skip a beat. The beat-up sedan was back, parked in my driveway. I walked over to it and opened the door. Inside I saw something that made my blood run cold. The driver's seat was empty, but the passenger seat was occupied by a skeletal figure, its bony fingers clutching the steering wheel. I didn't know what to do, but then I felt the hooded figure's presence again. It was guiding me, telling me what to do. "Get in the car," it said. "You are the only one who can drive it." I hesitated for a moment, but then I knew that I had no choice. I climbed into the driver's seat and took hold of the steering wheel. The skeletal figure in the passenger seat turned to look at me, its empty eye sockets staring into mine. And then we were off. The car sped down the road, faster than I had ever driven before. I felt the wind rushing through my hair, and I heard the hooded figure's voice in my head guiding me. We drove for what felt like hours, but it could have been minutes or days for all I knew. And then we arrived at our destination. It was a dark, foreboding castle, looming in the distance. "Welcome," the hooded figure said. "This is where you will help us." I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew that I had been chosen for a reason, and I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Thank you for listening, and if you have any scary stories you'd like to share, please submit them to thescorpiotales@gmail.com. Stay tuned.